good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Wherever you are in the world, a very warm welcome to Silver Tent TV. I'm Siobhan Reardon, your host, along with my dog Elsa, and we know sometimes she can join in and we just go with it. The Silver Tent is a global online platform for women over 50. It's a place to come, to be supported, to be nurtured, to pursue those dreams that are yet to be realised. And it's also a place to share women's wisdom by the fact that we're over 50, we're 60, 70, 80, 90. It's a chance to, we've been around the block a few times, and it's a chance to share women's wisdom with the world. And with that in mind, I'm here today with Joanna Bristow-Watkins. A very warm welcome to you, Joanna.
Thank you.
So Joanna works with energy. 23 years ago, she trained as a Reiki master and became very interested, with a background in travel, became very interested in Egyptian Reiki. And that took her to Egypt, where she went on to develop her own energy system. But I think the kind of crux of what you do, Joanna, is you're very passionate about making the ancient world accessible to the modern world. Would that be a fair way of summarising?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think they knew a lot that we've forgotten. Of course, there was a lot simpler life in those days. So they had more chance to notice what was going on around. They were more mindful.
So tell us about the journey that led you to Egypt.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so I was studying this system that was called Reyad Sekh Em, and it was subtitled Egyptian Reiki, and really captivated me, the idea of the Egyptian connection. I'd been working with it some time. It was brilliant, but it didn't mention Egypt anywhere in the notes because the system was very good. It was quality controlled, and you got a manual to pass on to your students. And it didn't even say that the word Sekh Em, which can be pronounced different ways, Sekh Em, Sikkim, whatever, actually means make complete or inner master. And I thought that was pretty crucial. I thought, I wonder what else I don't know.
And so what does that mean, though? Inner master, make complete?
Well, it tells me that even when they were using it thousands of years ago, they knew that there was something about that system that actually helped to complete their energetic template, if you like. And
so you felt called to explore this a bit more by going to Egypt itself, and that's to do with your travel background.
Well, I did have a long career in travel. My father had a chain of travel agency shops, and I was a trainer in the travel industry as well. So yeah, I had a big background in travel. And I just thought, I'd even been to Egypt actually 2 or 3 times, but I'd never been really drawn to go. Although I'd been because I'd had the opportunities, I was a bit reluctant really. And then I got persuaded to go on a spiritual journey, more of a pilgrimage. And the lady running it told me that when my soles touched the ground in Egypt, I'd remember everything. And I thought it was a bit unlikely. But what's weird is I'd been on a very similar trip not long before with my husband, and I hadn't remembered any of it. And definitely when I went on this particular trip, it did touch my soul in a very different way. So perhaps she was right.
So that led you kind of changed your direction in life, didn't it? So tell us, where did it lead you?
Well, a few of the trips just connected me with the old rites, really, and the old philosophies. And then on the 3rd or 4th trip, because I'd been a travel agent before and I fancied taking spiritual trips to Egypt, I thought, well, that would be a really fantastic next step. So I managed to find someone who was a really great fit for me with regard to being a spiritual guide, a guide as in a tourist guide, but he had a very strong spiritual background. So I wanted to meet him. And I'd actually had 2 opportunities to meet him before, which I hadn't recognised. So that was the universe teaching me a lesson. But on the 3rd trip, you know, as a pilgrimage, I met him, and he just told me some things which completely changed the path of my life. So yeah, he said that we had access to 360 different perceptions. And of course, we only identify 5 in our society: taste, touch, smell, hearing, and sight. So I just thought, God, I've got to have more. I've got to have more of this. That's what started me off.
So that's interesting. You touch on those perceptions. So tell me about some of the other, if there's 5, tell me about some of the other 340 that you talked about.
Well, we don't have names for all of them, which was a bit of a cop-out, I thought. But having said that, some of the ones we would have heard of would be clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, and telepathy, intuition. I mean, they're all perceptions that we can train that aren't really identified and worked with in our school system, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. And very much needed in this day and age where there's no signposts to tell us how to be or where to go, and we're navigating whole new terrains that the COVID age has brought us into. So tell me a bit about, as if I know nothing, tell me a bit about the system that you work to. It's Reyad Sekh Em, if I said it correctly.
Well, I say Reyad Sekh Em, but it's not that different. I mean, Hakim, who was the oral tradition wisdom keeper who I met in Egypt, he told me that the original name for Egypt was Kem, or Kempt, it's sometimes pronounced, because it was feminine, actually. And the original language, a T ending denoted feminine. So it would actually be pronounced Kempt. So he talked about Kemetian philosophies, and the philosophies that he taught was chemitology. So that's what I specialize in. And having sort of got me gripped with that, the main differences between what he told me in Egyptology was the age of the Sphinx and the pyramids, the fact that it was a matriarchal society. My cat is wanting attention.
Not Elsa this time.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's not Elsa this time.
Yeah, she's coming in. Yeah, so I mean, really fascinating things he told me, like the word hekau is power word. And in fact, the word Sekhem itself is a power word. So we have frequency in words that can actually really lift us vibrationally. And, you know, so much we don't know, really, that we've forgotten.
Yeah, and it's very much that story, isn't it, that God has been feminine for far, far longer than she's been masculine, isn't it? It's just thousands of years she's been masculine, but millions of years that she's been feminine. So it sounds very much like that story of reclaiming her story as opposed to his story.
Absolutely.
And so how is this helping people in the modern world, having access to this ancient feminine wisdom? How do we translate that into the modern world?
It's a really good question. I think what it does is it helps to join the dots within your own energy field. So I don't know how many of these additional perceptions I've opened, maybe only a few, you know, maybe I've still got a long, long way to go. But what it has enabled me to do is to read people's energy fields, which sounds a bit strange. It's not quite the same as an aura reading in the traditional sense, as in I don't see colours, although people can, you know, and that would be another example of how you can extend your perceptions to be able to read exactly what people's physical organs are doing through the colour of their aura. But I read people's aura in a way, I sometimes describe it as it's like a message in a bottle. So people have put like a message in their aura and I'm perceiving it and then extracting from it some kind of metaphor. And how it helps people is that metaphor just gives them perhaps an understanding of what might be underpinning a lot of their issues. And, you know, we know the brain has huge capacity, way, way more than we realise and that we give it credit for. And so it may be that all I do is give people something as a trigger to hinge an explanation to it. Might not be the genuine explanation, but if the client's brain perceives that the story that I've told them has meaning for them, if it explains a behavior pattern that they've been in for a long, long time, they can, if they feel, what's the word? If they feel inclined, they can reboot themselves, to use a modern term. You know, they can literally from that moment on rewrite their history into a herstory, perhaps, but just to start again. And it has been very profound, but of course, like anything, it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, people who train with me, because I teach the system as well, I always say that my typical student is somebody who wants to know everything with knobs on by the day before yesterday. So I really go with people who want detail.
So implicit in sharing that with us is that you provide therapy services as well as training,
Yes.
in this ancient system. And you were also mentioning about doing moon guidance, and tell me a bit more about that.
Thank you. Yes, well, the thing is, if you go back to the ancient world, a lot of their lives would have revolved around the moon, not least because it's when they had light, you know, when it was full moon, assuming there wasn't too many clouds in the sky, they might actually be able to see a bit more about what was going on. Plus, we know that women have a 28-day menstrual cycle, although a lot of the Silver Tent members, myself included, that might be historic now, but you know, we are
Silver Tent and not the red tent.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly, yes, a very good point. So we've progressed from the red tent to the silver tent, haven't we?
Yeah.
But we know that when we were in that cycle, assuming we weren't taking any chemicals, we would have been aligned with either the full moon or the new moon. So that is how we are wired. That is our template, our DNA. And so I'm trying to take people back to that programming, if you like. So the cycle takes 28 days, it's actually 29 and a quarter days, but we mainly sort of view it as a 28-day cycle. Starts with the new moon to full moon, about 2 weeks roughly. That's the period when the moon is getting bigger. So energetically, we're getting bigger. So that means not necessarily putting weight on, although maybe it does mean that as well, but it means abundance, bringing abundance and manifestation into your life. And then the full moon to the new moon, when the moon is waning or getting smaller, it's waxing when it's getting bigger. When it's waning, it's getting smaller. We're energetically getting smaller. So that's the time that the moon assists us with detoxing and release.
And so people can join you on these moon programs.
Yeah, they can.
Tell me a bit about how that works. I think you've got one coming up 2nd of January for that start of 2022.
Yes, I have. Thank you. I run them roughly every 3 months, and that's the next one that's due. So we start on a new moon and we run through the full lunar cycle. So new moon through full moon back to new moon, which this time round will finish on the 1st of February. So 2nd of January to the 1st of February. And during that time, we really work with that manifestation and release cycle part of the moon. And we help encourage people to develop a vision board for next year. So what they're putting on their vision board in the first 2 weeks will be things they want to manifest. What they put on their vision board in the second 2 weeks will be more things that they want to release. But of course, it doesn't have to be finished in that month. You know, we're just setting the scene, really. But we also work with the 28 moon mansion angels. And we invoke each mansion has its own guardian angel. And so we invoke that moon mansion angel every morning, or part of it, doesn't have to be the morning, but at some point in the day, I send everybody an affirmation for the day. And we really help to work with that, what color goes with that moon mansion, what zodiac sign, what crystals. And then that just helps to energize even more the process itself.
It sounds fascinating. So how do people contact you to get involved?
Well, my website is harmonyhealing.co.uk. My email is jo@harmonyhealing.co.uk, so pretty easy.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I have Insta, I have Facebook, I have Twitter, I have LinkedIn, all of those different things.
Yeah, you really are savvy in the modern world.
Well, we try.
I love it that your cat came in the moment we started talking about the Sphinx. I think that was a perfect moment. She obviously heard us. It's been fascinating talking to you, Joanna. Thank you. You've shone a light on one of those ancient systems that we're often denied the knowledge about. And I think it's definitely a part of her story as well. And thank you for coming and joining us and just telling us a bit more about it. And we'll put up the links so that anyone that's interested in finding out more, joining Joanna in her journey, can do so.
Thank you very much.
Wherever you are in the world, if the sun isn't shining in your skies, may it shine in your heart. This is Siobhan signing out.